In 2005, Warren Ellis and Adi Granoff took a character that had been muddled by years of lore and comics for the past 40 years and remade him for modern audiences. This is how Iron Man Extremis modernized the Golden Avenger. Before this story, Iron Man was a mess of ideas, so let me get this straight. He's a former war racketeer that became a superhero after almost dying in the Middle East. Seems simple, right? Well, his rogues gallery includes a scarecrow that feeds off fear, a mythical dragon, and a liquor store. His villains have so many random batshit gimmicks that it just confuses me to no end how it would end up in the rogues gallery of the tech guy of the Marvel Universe. Not saying that he didn't have good villains, but they were few and far between. The other reason everything was so hard to jump into and muddled was that the character had been around for almost 45 years. In that time, he'd gone to medieval times, become an alcoholic, lost his company, and almost died several times. How do you even start with a history like that? What Warren Ellis did was to simplify the core aspects of Iron Man: technology and the future. Both core aspects are used brilliantly for the villain Malin and Tony Stark himself. Malin uses Extremis to commit acts of terrorism because he thinks the government has overstepped its bounds many times. Tony uses Extremis to push Iron Man and himself into the future by becoming a cyborg and fixing many of his problems he had with his past armors. This shows that new technology can both be a horrible invention or an amazing leap forward. Tony himself is fine. His personality is a lot more troubled than the silly Tony Stark of nowadays. His convenience store scene is an interview with John Pillinger for a documentary Pillinger is making. What happens is that John calls the Iron Man suit a weapon for war, and this pisses off Tony, and he tells Pillinger that all he does is points at something and says, "Wow, someone should go deal with that," and does nothing about it. I think this does an okay job of characterizing Tony. I still prefer Matt Fraction's take on Tony Stark as a cross between MCU's and Extremis' personality. One point of criticism I have is Malin. He's not really fleshed out well. Like, we don't spend much time with him, and when we do, it's just him killing people. We get a tiny look at why he's a terrorist, but it's so small it could be skipped over. It's almost like I like the idea of him more than the actual character. That idea is a villain that makes Iron Man's role in the story as someone who fights terrorists, since Tony at the beginning was a weapons designer. A better version of Malin is Zeke Stane, son of Obadiah Stane. He's a terrorist who has a personal connection with Tony and isn't just someone that another hero or team can deal with. Zeke made Tony think about his past, present, and future, and came back to fight Tony once again, whereas Malin is just quickly thrown to the side at the end of the story. I also think Malin's design is a little boring. Like, come on, a jacket and jeans. Adi Granoff's art makes action scenes a spectacle to read through. Other than an odd face here or there, it's beautiful how he can make far-out concepts such as a man in a technologically advanced suit of armor look so real. I don't think any other artist could have made the action look so brutal. Although the covers from 1 to 5 don't look as good as the interior art did, they don't look awful, they just look like they're made on some shitty CGI program from 2001. Except for issue 6's cover, which is the only one that looks like a usual Granoff cover. This story also gave us the Extremis armor, a suit that made Tony better, faster, stronger than he ever was before. He could suit up almost instantly, move faster, and become more aggressive in fights. It's also just one of the best suit designs, cosmetically. I particularly love the helmet as it just looks so sleek and badass. It's also my favorite design in his entire history, and I think Marvel would agree, as it's the evergreen design for event storylines and Avengers comic books. In conclusion, this changed Iron Man for the better and opened up for other creators to expand on the ideas crafted in this story. Without this comic, Matt Fraction and Kieran Gillian's runs on Iron Man probably wouldn't have been as good. It can be also found at most bookstores for pretty cheap, and I'm pretty sure I got my copy for around 12 bucks. Please buy this influential masterpiece, you won't regret it. But before I end this video, here's a fun fact. Famed director Quentin Tarantino of such films as Kill Bill, Reservoir Dogs, and Pulp Fiction was supposed to write and direct an Iron Man movie. Think of any Tarantino movie, but with Marvel characters, and you'd get a good picture of what it would have been like. While I would like to see it, and hope it gets greenlit at some time in the future, Disney would never let it happen nowadays because Iron Man is seen as a kid's character who appears on lunchboxes and backpacks and all that other bullshit for preschoolers.